listening to The Basement Podcast. The Basement airs live every Wednesday night from 10 p.m. to midnight on 88.7 WMMT FM Mountain Community Radio, the non-industrial giant in the mountains. WMMT is the non-commercial community radio service of Appleshop Incorporated, a not-for-profit art and education center in Whitesburg, Kentucky. To stream live or to learn more about WMMT, you can visit www.wmmt.org.
Is everyone present?
I'm here.
Andy? All right. Andy?
I'm here.
Okay, we got you now too. Okay. All right. This is the, let's reintroduce the show now that we're at the top of the 11 o'clock hour and everybody is here and alive and has made it, and we're all blessed and thankful that that's the case. It's 11:02 p.m. You're listening to The Basement on 88.7 FM WMMT. My name is Rance Garrison, and I am joined tonight by my lovely wife, Andrea, and my good friend, Keaton Lawson, who is calling in from Lee County, Virginia, Pennington Gap to be specific. And we're going to be talking a little bit tonight about alien abductions. Well, I guess the first thing I should probably say is that I am a skeptic when it comes to alien abductions. I don't believe that they are real. I think that
Why don't you believe they're real?
Why don't I believe they're real? Because there's no like really good, hard scientific evidence that one has ever taken place.
But many people have claimed to be abducted before, so can all of them be lying?
Well, there are some people who claim to be Napoleon Bonaparte, but we don't believe them. I mean, it's the same principle.
Back up for a second. Do you believe in at least UFOs?
I believe
You know what I mean.
I believe that extraterrestrial beings exist in the universe. I think when you look at how big the universe is, it would be pretty amazing if we were the only life in it anywhere. I think that would be really, really strange, unless, of course, the universe that we see is actually running on a computer simulation, in which case any number of things could just be really weird, and everything we know and see might be a questionable reality in the first place, which that's a topic we'll discuss on another episode, maybe next week's episode. But
all right, so you can go as far as to say that you think the aliens exist in the universe, but do you think that they traveled to our neck of the woods?
I am very skeptical that aliens have ever been to our planet. I am very skeptical about that.
Okay, do you think they don't have the technology to do such a thing? That they're not that advanced, or what?
No, I think that they have the technology. I just don't. I don't know. That's the thing. Is I think that maybe some, like our civilization, I think some civilizations, alien civilizations might have the technology to get to Earth. I think that other alien civilizations might not have that technology yet.
Be primitive, like, just primitive life somewhere, like a planet full of animals.
Yes.
Something like it.
Yes. And I don't know if I feel like if they had actually been here, we would have better evidence that they had been here.
Well, there is many arguments, and the type of people that think they have been here. The pyramids,
I think they have been.
All the mysterious crap that there is,
So, Andy, you're a believer in alien abductions and in UFOs.
Yeah. There's many, many, many people who have claimed to have been abducted. And, yeah, some of them are probably false, but all of them, it seems a little out there to say that all of them aren't telling the truth.
Right.
That is a good point. What's your position, Keaton?
I'm just going to go for it. Yeah, I think that I'm a little bit skeptical, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I haven't seen aliens, but I have definitely seen something in the sky that I could not identify.
So have I.
Unidentified flying object. So I've seen that. But to see the little alien dudes, I hadn't seen that. No.
Yeah, but that could be anything that y'all are seeing up there in the sky.
It could be government stuff. What do they say, a weather balloon? But I don't know, man. This was a blinking green light that just stood there, floated, hovered up and down, and just zoomed away. So I don't know what that could have been.
What I saw was when I was a kid, and several people within our little area where we lived in Keoki, they saw the same thing. It was across from where my parents live, and it was hovering above a hill there. It was, as best as I can remember, kind of diamond shape, and it was spinning around really fast, and it had colored lights around it, like on a band around the middle of it, and it was spinning really, really fast, and the lights would turn white as it spun, and when it would slow down, it would be colorful again. And it hovered there for several minutes, and then it was just gone.
Okay, did it feel like it was a weather balloon? You know, like
No.
that was passed it off as? It
No.
seemed otherworldly, didn't it?
It was some type of craft.
Right, yeah.
I'm not saying it wasn't from here. It may have been, but it was some type of craft.
Well, alien abduction stories have been a part. I just want to give a little bit of historical, I guess, context or whatever.
Yeah.
Alien abduction stories are as old as humanity itself, although they haven't always been called alien abduction stories. There have always been stories of people being taken up into the sky and sort of shown things or experimented on or whatever. Some argue that you can even find this in the Bible.
Like Elijah in the chariot of fire?
Like Elijah in the chariot of fire. Also,
Yeah,
in the book of Genesis, it talks about the angels coming down and mating with the daughters of mankind, and God didn't like that. So there's stuff like that in the Bible itself that talks about, weird things happening and that of that nature. And some people argue that is evidence of ancient alien civilizations visiting Earth. Also, you've got like the Anunnaki. Is that one of the cultures or is that one of the races? What are the Anunnaki?
It's been a while since I've read about this stuff, but for a while I was really into alien stuff and I read a lot. The Anunnaki, as best as I can remember, were this race of extraterrestrials that were described as being kind of like humans but bigger. They were winged, very human-like, humanoid. I'm not sure where they were supposed to have been from off the top of my head, but some people believe that they existed and that they came here. And
what society? Do you remember what culture it was that said that they had that this Anunnaki? Because I don't remember.
I'm not
an
off the top
expert
of
when
my
it comes to
head.
this stuff. But I know that there are lots of things like you hear about, down in Peru, like the Nazca lines and
in Peru,
mines and all that.
The Nazca lines in Peru, you can't see it if you're standing on the ground, but over the landscape, there's these pictures carved into the earth, into the sand, and it's there's different ones. There's things like spiders and stuff like that carved out, and there are these giant
like
images.
Big people too, right?
Yeah, there's
Sorry, I
some
didn't mean to cut
of these like humanoid things that have they're shaped kind of like people, but they have these circles around their heads, kind of like some sort of breathing apparatus, like kind of like a helmet.
Yeah, like a space helmet. Yeah.
And you can only see these things from the sky. So they wanted whatever, whether they believed it was their gods or whatever, to see these images from the air.
Well, doesn't it make, okay, and I'm playing devil's advocate here.
All right.
If you are an ancient primitive person, okay, and you believe that your deity lives in the sky somewhere, doesn't it make sense that you would build structures and things that could only be seen in the sky as a form of like ritual worship? Like, couldn't these things that people say, oh, that's evidence of aliens, couldn't that just be like an ancient form of religion?
Like some kind of portrait to be seen from outer space.
Yeah, it could be. Something else, though, that's
Where the
interesting.
deity would be like, oh, there they are. Yeah.
In Peru, near the same area, there is this mountain that has been leveled off at the top, and it was leveled off way, way back when. It's leveled off, and it looks like an airstrip. It looks like a landing, like the landing for an airport. Only it's on top of a mountain in Peru, back from ancient times.
So let's
They were assuming that aliens needed to like have a runway.
so yeah, like they're flying in on a jumbo jet, man.
Right.
But okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about specifically. Now we know where we all stand. I'm a skeptic. You two are believers. So we've got those are our two positions. Keaton, you're kind of more of a neutral believer, I guess, and Andy, you're kind of you really are. I know all about how you believe in aliens.
I mean, I think that it's possible. Do I know? Of course not. But I think it actually. I mean, yeah. If you've got an infinite universe and all kinds of life that could possibly be there, I definitely think that some of them are far enough advanced that they could, and not even have to travel. Just kind of pop in, pop into our atmosphere and just take a look around and pop back out.
Like they've opened up a wormhole or something from like the far end of the universe.
Yeah, think about if they have, a couple billion years of evolution on us and their technology would be insane, I think it's possible, yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm such a skeptic that I don't think it's possible. Well, let me clear that up. I think it's definitely possible. Do I think it's probable? Like, do I think it, that it's definitely something that's happened? That I'm iffy on. I think it's possible, but maybe I'll be swayed by the end of this conversation. One of the stories, I did find a story that I found absolutely fascinating. I want to open up with this one because this is a story. This is one of the earliest alien abduction stories that we have on record. Carl Sagan took a very deep interest in this story during his lifetime. This is the story of a young lady named Anne Jeffries. Now, Anne lived in the 1600s. She was actually born, I've got it pulled up here in front of me. She was actually born in 1626. And she was from a poor working class peasant family. But when she was in her teenage years, she went to live with this wealthy family, and she served as their maid. And this was in the village of Cornwall in England. And basically what happened is that one morning they found Miss Jeffries. She was just absolutely having these fits, and she was going into convulsions in the yard, and nobody knew what was going on with her. And so the local constable came by, and he put her on his horse, and he took her back to the home, to the main house where she was living and working for these rich people. And basically, the woman, Miss Jeffries, started getting to the point to where she could actually perform healings on people. People would come from miles and miles around to have their injuries healed and to have their afflictions healed by her, and she could lay hands on them and heal them after she started having these convulsions. And
so it was like an honest-to-God account of a real healer.
Of a real faith healer in the 1600s. As far as and there are records of this. There are several documents you can find online that are first-hand accounts that people have written down. This actually went to court in Cornwall, and I'm going to get around to why in just a moment. But basically what Anne said was that she had been visited by fairies, and she described them as these little bitty people who would crawl all over her body, and they would go out the window, and she would follow them. And when she went out the window with the fairies, one of them would kiss her, and she would be transported to this other world. She described it as this giant castle in the sky. And she said that when she got into the castle in the sky, there were hundreds of people. She described them living in this castle, and they were now all her size, right? Like they weren't little bitty anymore. She was the same size as they were. And she described this castle in the sky as this beautiful place filled with lights and temples and huge buildings. And I guess she said that she could kind of see the earth from the castle in the sky, and she could look down on the earth.
So it was like orbiting the earth?
Yeah, that's what she claimed, that she was taken to this otherworldly place in the sky away from the earth.
So could that be like a ship?
Maybe like a mothership. Maybe it was a mothership. And so she said that, and so basically what happened was once she came back down from the mothership or from the castle in the sky or however you want to describe it, she had healing powers and was able to do these faith healings on people. And she said that she was consulting with the fairies even still, and that they would come to her. And at one point, she even stopped eating And well, actually, she didn't stop eating. What happened was, this was the 1600s. People were very religious and very kind of superstitious. Well, no, not kind of superstitious. People were really, really superstitious in the 1600s. And so what happened was they said that these fairies that she was getting visited by were actually demons. And
well, of course, that's what they said.
And they accused her of witchcraft, and they put her in jail.
Wow.
And basically, they didn't feed her while she was in jail, though. The jailers were like, "We're not going to feed that witch. We're waiting on her to be executed." And she basically she was able to survive even though she wasn't being fed. And so basically, they said that she was being fed by fairies. She said that she was being fed by the fairies and kept alive by them to spread their message and to continue her healing work, even though she was in jail. And basically, I guess she lived out at some point. I'm not sure. I wasn't able to find out whether or not she was eventually freed or it was disproven. But this did go to court. And there are documents firsthand from the court case. That's something I need to research, is how this story ends, because I don't exactly know that part of the story. But I do know that she spent a considerable amount of time in jail, and that there are court documents from the 1600s about this case, and that it actually got a fairly big amount of notoriety back in the 1600s in England, and that Carl Sagan was really interested in it. So I thought this was an interesting case of a possible early account of an alien abduction that took place before we had television, before we had the internet, before people had any way to read about these things. Here's this young lady in 1600s England claiming that this happened to her. So I thought it was pretty cool.
So, like, you said that they put her in prison, and
Yes.
that they weren't feeding her,
Right.
and that the fairies, or whatever they were keeping her alive, were feeding her. So, but you don't know how long she was actually in prison.
Well, actually, I did find. I don't know how many years she was in prison. I did just find out, because I was still reading this as I was telling you all about it, is that she was eventually freed from the prison, but she was not allowed to go back and live with the rich family. She had to go back and live with her poor family, which she was fine with, apparently. And she ended up meeting a nice young man, and she was married. And this is from the firsthand records. It says she lived a considerable time and did a great many cures.
That's crazy, man. That really is.
That is from the court record.
That's like border on like mystical, like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
mystical
yeah.
Stuff.
They should make a movie about that.
Totally. That's why I was sitting there thinking. I was like, man, that's a trip right there.
So, Andy, you've got a couple of stories, don't you?
Yeah, the first one is a pretty well-known one. It was probably one of the first ones in America. It was the Barney and Betty Hill case. It's also known as the Zeta Reticuli incident. Barney and Betty Hill, this happened on September 20th, 1961. They had been on vacation in Canada. They had been to Niagara Falls, and they lived in New Hampshire, and they were traveling back during the night to New Hampshire to their home.
Right.
They were traveling back, and they noticed, they decided to pull off. They had a little dog, and they were going to walk the dog around. And they pull off at a stop to walk the dog and to stretch their legs and stuff, and they notice this light in the sky. And Betty says that, she at first thought it was like a shooting star, only it was moving upward, and it was moving erratically. It starts getting bigger and bigger and coming closer to it. And they have binoculars, and they're watching this thing as it gets closer. Well, they get into their vehicle, and they drive down the road. This thing starts kind of playing a game of cat and mouse with them, this craft. It would disappear behind mountains and show back up, and Betty said it was pretty big. She described it as there was a mountain, I guess some sort of like a landmark near them that was 40 feet wide or 40 feet long, and she said that the craft was bigger than that landmark, than that mountain.
Wow.
And
okay. So it's definitely visible.
So this is a mountain-sized UFO, and they're seeing this in their car. Mm-hmm. They're in their car, and there's a UFO the size of a mountain going up and down behind the mountain.
Yeah, and it's playing this game with them. They're driving. They're a little scared. They're driving down the road. This thing is playing this game with them, following them, hovering above them, moving behind mountains and reappearing and things. They stop in the road, and Barney gets out and he's trying to see it with his binoculars. The craft is a little ways in front of them, but hovering above the road. He sees these beings through the window, and they're looking at him. There's several of them. He gets scared, so he gets in his vehicle.
Has a window in it,
yeah,
so he can clearly see it's a craft with windows. That's wild.
Okay. And now, are the windows real big too? Or are these like giant people inside here? Are these normal size, or does it say?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
But they get back in the vehicle and they start driving off. Barney tells Betty to watch out for the craft. She rolls down the window and is looking out the window to see, to keep track of this thing. They're scared, of course. And she says that she's looking around and she's looking up. It's a clear night. Keep that in mind. There's stars out. But whenever she looks out the window, all she can see above them is darkness. There's no stars. She can't see it. It's blocked out. They're driving down the road. They start feeling this vibration coming from the back of the car. This vibration and this rhythmic set of buzzings and beeps and stuff. And they said that their minds sort of felt like they were fogged over. Well,
wait, what'd you say? Their minds were fogged over?
Yeah. And they're driving down this road. They don't, right off the bat, they don't really have much of a recollection of what happens. They have about 3 hours of time that's unaccounted for. They were 35 miles away from where they were originally. They start feeling this vibrations and stuff again. They go home. This huge chunk of time can't be accounted for. They get home. They start having some weird things happen. Betty keeps suitcases from their vacation packed by the door. Barney has this... he's compelled, he says, to check himself in the mirror.
Yeah.
What do you mean to check himself in the mirror?
Himself.
Oh, I got you.
What, okay, now, let me get this straight. Now, they're doing this, like, against their will, or, like, they're, like, witnessing themselves do this, or, like,
They know they're doing it, but they said they feel these weird, like they're compelled to do it, these things.
Right. Okay.
Well, they decide that Betty starts having some nightmares about being kind of taken through the woods and stuff, being led by these beings. She has nightmares for 5 consecutive nights. And her and Barney, they decide to go to some therapy, and they decide to do hypnosis. Betty, during her hypnosis, during her sessions, she describes being aboard the ship. These beings take her and Barney aboard the ship. She refers to one of them as the leader. They speak to them in English, but they don't move their mouths.
So it's like telekinesis.
Mm-hmm. And she refers to one of them as the leader. Betty is kind of frantic and says that she doesn't want to be separated from Barney. But the leader tells her that it would take longer to do the examinations they need to do if they're together than it would if they were separated. Betty is led to a separate room than Barney, and another being comes in. She refers to this one as the examiner. He also speaks to her in English, but it's a little broken. She can't understand him as well as the other one, the one she calls the leader. He does a series of tests on her. He says that they are testing humans to see the differences between their own kind and human beings. So he cuts a lock of Betty's hair off. He takes samples of her fingernails. He checks her eyes, her ears, her mouth. He takes a thing that she describes kind of like a flat letter opener and scrapes some dead skin cells off onto something she says is kind of like cellophane. He, at one point, sticks a large needle in her belly button. And she said that it was agonizingly painful, but whenever he realized it was painful for her, he waved his hand in front of her face and the pain immediately went away.
Wow.
She said that this being, the examiner, had a very calm, peaceful demeanor about him. There was a book in the room that had some strange symbols on the front, and she asked him about it, and he said that he could take it with her, that she could take the book with her whenever she left, whenever she went back home. So, this happens to her. A similar experience happens to Barney, but his isn't as clear because he said he was really, really afraid, and he kept his eyes closed during most of the examination. He said during his regressions, his hypnosis, he said things like, he would say some strange things like, the eyes, I can see the eyes, they're pressing against my eyes. And he said that these beings would look at him and kind of hypnotize him, almost.
Yeah.
And his was similar.
I just want to chime in here real quick, and I want to say I hope this one is not true, because this is terrifying. I hope this is one of the ones that someone just, sat around and said, let's make up a good story and scare people. Because, man, I can handle the little fairies, But this one's rough. Okay, sorry, Andy, go ahead.
Barney's is a little less detailed than Betty's because he said that he kept his eyes closed during most of it. He was really, really anxious. Even though the beings were telling him not to be afraid, he was still anxious and scared. Betty was a little more curious. She asked questions about things. She asked the examiner where he was from. And he sort of, as best as I can tell, it was almost like a hologram thing that he used to point out the star cluster from where he was from. He showed her trade routes in this star cluster to other stars.
Wow. Sounds like Star Wars.
Yeah. And he showed her this and told her where he was from. Well, the Hills, after all this happens, they're being escorted back to their vehicle through the woods, and a little scuffle amongst these beings breaks out because the examiner told Betty she could have the book. And the leader told Betty she couldn't have the book, that the other beings had decided that they weren't going to let her remember this experience, that they didn't want her to remember it. They take the book away. During Betty's hypnosis, her doctor suggests that she try to draw out the star map. And she does. And guess what? It turns out to correlate with a star cluster.
Okay.
Really?
So let me just make sure we got this straight. These people are abducted by aliens. Mm-hmm. They do all these tests on them, experiments. But before they leave, the aliens kind of do a mind wipe, right? Like the people can't remember anymore.
The next thing they remember is they're driving down the road. This big chunk of time has passed.
So they're like 3 hours pass, and they're 35 miles away from where they started.
They feel the buzzing and stuff, the vibrations on their car again, and they're 3 hours down the road, 35 minutes down the,
and
or
so
35 miles down the road.
It's only through like hypnotherapy that they were able to remember.
Yeah. Betty had some dreams and stuff and some vague recollections. They remembered seeing the craft at first, but they didn't remember any of the thing, being aboard the ship or anything like that.
So how do we, now if that's true, now here's something that might scare you. If they didn't remember what had happened to them, how do we know that all of us haven't been abducted at one point? You might have already been. You might have already been abducted by an alien, and you not even know it.
I've had.
Well, it's like Men in Black, that movie. You could have seen something insane, and then they show up. Which there's theories that they exist too. By the way.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that eventually. Mm-hmm.
Come and wipe your mind, and the whole deal.
Yeah.
I've had dreams since I was a kid about being abducted by aliens. I really have. I know that's weird, but I really have.
My mom used to go on and on about how she wanted to be abducted by aliens. And
Why?
I don't know. She would talk. I wish somebody just I wish the aliens just come abduct me. Like, I don't know if that was just her being passive aggressive toward my dad or what, but like she would really, really, really. She watched X-Files and Star Trek all the time, and she would talk about wanting to be abducted. But I think now you got another example, right? Or
something else about the Barney and Betty Hill case.
Oh, okay,
real quick.
okay.
Some things they noticed, though, was I told you about the vibrations of the car coming from the back end of the car and the tapping and buzzing sounds and the beeping. Well, on the back of their car, there were these weird circles on the car. And Barney and Betty took a compass and held it above the back of the car. And whenever they would hold it above the back of the car, the needle on the compass would just go crazy. It would spin around erratically, and they'd move it a few inches away. It would go back to normal.
Like the car had been magnetized or something. That's weird.
And
yeah.
Just some.
Wait, what year did this happen in? I'm sorry, I'm confused.
This was back in 1961, so there weren't. This just wasn't really a thing then. There weren't very many people saying they had been abducted at this point. Barney and Betty...
A handy time to have a smartphone, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Barney and Betty Hill, this happened to them on September 19th, 1961.
Right.
But that is the Hill case, and there's another one that's not quite as detailed. I couldn't find as much about it, but I just thought this one was really interesting. This is a story of John Salter Jr. and his son John III. They had been driving on a highway and had appeared to have lost about an hour of time. They couldn't account for it.
So that's like a theme, ain't it? Like they wipe your...
They had there was about an hour of time they couldn't account for, and they found out they were driving the opposite direction that they were to begin with.
Wow, that was a creepy laugh, man.
Well, I just really like. I was just imagining, like, man, you driving towards Pennington or something, man. Then all of a sudden, snap your fingers, you're driving back towards Big Stone.
Check your watch in 3 hours.
Oh my God, what happened, man? All right, I'm sorry, Andy. Go ahead.
They didn't have any memory of this missing hour, and they continued driving until they saw a UFO in the air. They described it as a UFO. The sight of the UFO kind of jogged their memory. At this point, they remembered seeing a group of what they thought to be children, as well as a taller, half-human, half-alien type creature in the road. The men say they weren't afraid of the aliens. Instead, they felt really protected in this peaceful vibe, and they felt kind of bonded to them. The two men were guided into a room where they had thorough medical examinations. Hair samples were taken, nail samples similar to the Betty and Barney Hill case, things like that. They were examined, their eyes were checked. They both experienced after this an improvement in their health. And the most unusual part of this was John Jr. had a rather large permanent scar on his forehead that after this supposedly happened to them, the scar nearly completely disappeared.
So they're just space doctors.
Yeah, that's all they are, man. This is like going to,
space doctors. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just, they're just giving them checkups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
That's
what they're about, come help out,
I mean, Lord knows most of us can't afford health insurance anymore. I mean,
have to turn to aliens, man.
Hey, aliens, come get me, man. I need a checkup. No, really don't. We got to drive home on a dark road all the way back to Norton tonight, so don't do that.
Well, you better have your cameras ready.
Is it okay? So this story, the aliens abduct them. They lose an hour of time, and then they're facing the opposite direction. And then all of a sudden, the guy's got a forehead scar that ain't there anymore, and he's healed of all his infirmities.
He and his son experienced improvement in their health. This happened back in 1988, by the way.
Okay, so here's my question. All of these cases, why hasn't there been a case of alien abduction so far? In our day now, when we've got, everybody's got a smartphone, everybody's got a camera in their pocket, everybody's got all these things. All these stories happen right before the advent of the cell phone.
There's more current ones too, and there's a lot of current ones.
But why hasn't anybody taken a picture of the inside of their ship?
Some of the stories people have tried, but have had malfunctions amongst their devices and things, and you can say that that's convenient, but maybe it's true. If Betty and Barney Hill's car was magnetized and it caused a compass to go crazy,
Now, I don't know if y'all have seen this or not, but there's a documentary. It's on YouTube and Netflix, I think. It's Arizona Lights, or Lights Over Arizona. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. The Phoenix Lights?
Yeah, the Phoenix Lights.
Yeah.
And now, see, that is a really huge UFO that was over Phoenix. And a lot of people saw it and caught it on cameras from different angles.
Police officers and lots of different people.
And people in their government, like the mayor of the town seen it. People that, don't want to be associated with saying weird things, and they flat out admitted it. Yeah, we saw it. It's, on video. So there's that, that happened recently.
Yeah, I have seen the tape of that. Now that's a pretty fascinating thing that happened. I got to say, that's pretty.
Multiple multiple people, man, filming from different, they edit it all together, and it's
well, now
it's a thing to happen.
This isn't an alien abduction story or anything, but have you heard these here recently? There has been this. They've been seeing this floating city in the sky in China.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
Yeah.
No.
You haven't heard about
Where'd you see
this?
that at?
It's there have been scientists say that it's some type of like a mirage that is something to do with like the cloud positioning, certain types of clouds and the ocean and all these different factors that create this mirage in the sky and project the city that the people are in actuality into the sky somehow. But yeah, there's photos of it. There's photos, and I think there's actually videos of it's over China. It's been seen over other places as well. The city, there's buildings. You can see outlines of buildings. It's a floating city in the sky.
So it looks like a modern city.
It looks like a modern city floating in the sky. And what they say is that this is caused somehow by the particles in the air. The water vapor particles in the air are actually reflecting the city down below. That's what they say. I don't know. I don't know.
Like a giant mirror.
Like a giant mirror in the sky is somehow forming, and it's causing the optical illusion that there is a city floating in the sky. I don't know, though. That's still kind of weird. You would think if that were happening, you could walk outside here and see mountains reflected in the sky. But I've never seen that.
If that would happen a lot, that would be a documented thing. Oh, that's just the sky mirror. Happens all the time. You know what I mean? No, that's pretty weird. I'm going to have to Google that.
I think that they say that it's something, like China is very well known for having a lot of pollution in the air above their cities. And they say that pollution has something to do with this occurrence. That the amount of pollution in the air is somehow responsible for this.
There have been similar things that have been seen, though, over Japan. It's been seen over Germany. Similar accounts of something kind of like the city in the sky.
I don't know, man. It's all I know is it is a very, very, very strange world that we live in.
Fascinating world.
Yeah, but talking about alien abductions. I don't know. I just I'm afraid to say. Look, I'm gonna be honest. I'm afraid to say no. This don't happen. And then here I am, going to drive 45 minutes back to Norton on this
Got that little voice in the back of your head going, it's true.
On this country mountain road, where I know we're going to be alone on the road most of that drive, and then me and Andy get sucked up into a mothership, and I'm up there in the sky with Anne Jeffries. Making love to the fairies and getting healing powers, which don't sound too bad. I mean, let's be honest here. It could be, life could be a lot worse, I guess.
There's your next album title.
There it is.
But, that it just seems, if that's what they do, or if they give me a checkup like the Obamacare aliens, that's okay with me. I'm fine with
I'm
that.
serious. If those aliens are listening right now, which is a weird thought, come check me out.
But I don't want to go. I don't want to be. I don't want to have nobody. Putting needles in my belly button.
No.
Like that one case.
Well, see, the thing is, though, she said it was this examiner, as she referred to him. She said he was really peaceful and had this really calm demeanor about him, and she was talking to him. And when that happened, and he realized it was painful for her, he waved his hand in front of her face, and the pain went away immediately.
Well, what kind of examiner wouldn't know that stabbing a giant needle into someone is painful?
Well, maybe
he knew it was and needed her reaction. He said that they were studying humans to compare them amongst their own kind. Maybe he knew that, but needed her reaction and then waved the pain away.
If they're studying humans, what are they doing, and why have they been doing it so long, and why is this work important to them?
They're just writing their own, science books.
Is it the same?
Figuring it out.
Is it like the same way we go and study chimpanzees?
Yeah, they're making a intergalactic encyclopedia. It's just doctors and aliens that work at colleges.
So are you saying that people are getting abducted by alien medical students, Keaton?
Yeah, they're like undergrad aliens, and and it's part of their thesis. They have to go fly around, check out different species, and that's what they're doing.
There's lots of different theories out there, and one of the theories is the zoo theory, and it's that aliens kind of observe us from out there like we do animals in a zoo.
Right. I can see that. So is it.
I guess I can see it too, but I don't know. I'm still skeptical, man. I have not been. I guess I would have. It's one of these situations where I feel like I would have to see it to believe it, but I don't want to see it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I would have to see it to believe it, but I really don't want to see it.
If I'm being honest, if it did happen to me, I would be a little, I'd be frightened at first, but then I would be like, okay, well, this is happening, and then I'd probably be a little bit like Betty and ask questions and try to communicate and things of that nature.
Well, I guess I would try to ask questions too, but I would be, like I grew up watching the X-Files, okay? My mom loved the X-Files. We used to watch it every Friday night, and, alien abductions happened on the X-Files a lot. And they were never cool. Like the aliens, they never seemed like a good time to me. You couldn't move. The aliens were always kind of like these weird gray things that were kind of just out of your view, and they're like behind a curtain, and there's fog, and there's scary music playing, and it just seems like a very, 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 very unpleasant experience. And I just would not want to have that, man. I mean, like I said, if they're just going to give me a checkup, or if they're going to take me to a beautiful floating city where I'm going to get lots of kisses from fairy women, I guess I'm fine with that. Yeah. But I don't want to be probed.
For those of you all interested out there too, there's a book about Barney and Betty Hill's encounter called Interrupted Journey by John G. Fuller, and it details a lot of their claims and has the drawing that Betty did of the star map and things like that in it.
I'm gonna check that out myself.
Can you give us the name of that book again, Andy?
It's Interrupted Journey
by
John G. Fuller.
Interrupted Journey by John G. Fuller. Well, we are on that note almost out of time. If you would like to further research the case of Anne Jeffries, I don't have a book recommendation for you, but you can always Google it. There's a lot of information out there about it, and the original documents of the court case where this was recorded are also available online. So there's that. Keaton, you have anything to add tonight?
I just hope you get home safe.
I hope I get home safe too. I'm really hoping that I don't see any weird flashing lights in the sky, because it's really going to freak me out.
If it's like
tonight.
5 o'clock in the morning when we get home, I'm going to be a little worried.
Yeah, I'm a skeptic until we turn the lights off. Then I get kind of wigged out.
If it does happen, just try to remember, and you can write a best-selling book, and you're set.
Oh yeah, man! If it happens, I'm going to be a millionaire if they don't kill me. All right. Well, it's 11:43. We got about 15 minutes left in the show. We're going to switch it back up. I'm about to say good night, everybody. I'm going to play a couple of songs to get us played out. And I'm sorry, Andy, what were you saying? Oh, okay. Well, I thought you had something you wanted to say.
Well, it's nothing important. I was just going to tell everybody bye.
Yeah, let's tell everybody bye. I've had a good
Bye,
time.
everybody.
Okay, now I want to be clear here. This is our second week doing this rendition of the show, and the way this basically works is that the basement, for a long time, I've been doing this show since last October. I never wanted it to be just another rock and roll show.
Like a caterpillar just turned into a butterfly.
Yes, like a little caterpillar, it is turned into a butterfly. And like my lovely wife, who went a long time without talking on the air, she's finally talking, and I'm really glad that that's happening. And I'm glad that we figured out a way for Keaton to be a part of the show. Basically what happened was I started doing this show soon after I started serving here as a Vista at WMMT. And it started out as just a music show because I was doing it by myself. And then Keaton was joining me for a little bit, and it got really fun for a minute. But what ended up happening, of course, was you ended up having to go to work early in the morning. You weren't able to make it up here because the show was happening so late. So I brought Bill in as my co-host for a while. But the same thing happened to him. He ended up having to go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and wasn't able to be up here after midnight and then drive all the way back to Virginia from Kentucky. So then it was just me again, and I was really sad and lonely about it, but I was still just playing the music on the radio, kind of having a real boring time. Right. So it just became a standard rock and roll radio show, which was fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with good old fashioned rock and roll radio shows. That's why this is going to be the format of the show for the foreseeable future. We're going to have the first hour is going to be dedicated to music, a variety of music, mostly rock, but also a little bit of folk and some alternative stuff and some classic traditional Appalachian music. And then at the top of the 11 o'clock hour, we're going to switch over and we're going to talk about a variety of subjects. Who knows what the conversations will bring? Last week it was gross foods. This week it was alien abductions. It might not always be something weird. Sometimes it might just be completely random.
See, I like talking about things like this. About weird foods and supernatural things and stuff like that. I can have a conversation about that. I didn't know that that's what you wanted to do before. So that's why I wouldn't talk. I thought that I would be trying to come up with the music facts about songs and what have you.
Lord, no. Lord, no. I've been wanting to move away from this being a music show for a long time. And, you know, it's really nice. I've been wanting to kind of make it like an Appalachian version of Coast to Coast AM. Would be my dream if I could be known as the Art Bell of Appalachia, Rance Garrison. I would be stoked, man. But so yeah, that's kind of the direction I'm trying to move this show in, and I'm glad to have Andy and Keaton here with me, and hopefully eventually we'll be able to get Bill back up here, and we can have other guests and other friends join us on the show. Occasionally we might end up doing a pre-recorded interview or two if we can find the people who want to talk to us. And then I'm also planning on putting these on the internet as a podcast. And then hopefully in the near future, Keaton, I still want to do a separate podcast with you that will be a little bit more unedited and uncensored.
Right, yeah.
So that'll be coming up in the future too at some point, as soon as we can kind of get it all together. I know we've both got a lot going on right now. So I'm just trying to give our listeners a heads up. According to the online map here, we have a total of 5. But I want to give them a heads up.
Hello, everybody.
in terms of what's coming and what to expect, because I think that there's going to be some really exciting stuff coming out of this show.
Yeah, I never know what we're going to talk about till like 5 minutes beforehand, so I'm just thrown in. But I like it.
Well, that's been the way it's been for the past couple of weeks. But you know that'll change.
I think maybe next week, whatever we decide to talk about, maybe if it's something like this and we pick a few different stories, maybe Rance picks one to talk about, I pick one, and you can pick one, and we all bring our own to the table and talk about it.
Or it might be, a completely different kind of conversation next week. Who knows? I'll be thinking about it through the week, and we'll all meet up and talk about it at some point before next Wednesday.
It's fun. Having fun.
It's a lot of fun, and I really hope. I want to say this to our listeners. I really, really, really hope that you guys are having a good time listening. Like I said, we're trying something new. This was really unexpected and really organic, the way this all kind of took off and took place. And I just hope that everybody's enjoying it. I hope that the listeners are liking it. I know I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it a lot better than just sitting here playing music. It's actually fun. I feel like I'm interacting with you guys. I hope that we're interacting with our audience. If you would like to interact with us on social media, you can do so. Go to facebook.com and look for The Basement on WMMT. We've got a nifty little Facebook page there. Beginning tomorrow, I will be putting content on our YouTube channel. And we've also got a Tumblr. So, and it's just WMMT Basement. Just look for that on Tumblr and you can find us there. So lots of ways to interact with us. I check all of those pages and stuff on a regular basis. So if you like the show, let us know. And in the meantime, everybody have a good night, I guess. I'm going to play us off with a couple of tunes. What do y'all want to hear? Give me a song idea.
You just said my mind goes blank.
Well, you know a million songs, Keaton.
I know. The only thing that comes to mind is Tiny Tim, but we played that once and everybody stopped listening.
Well, that's because he is an alien, man. Nobody wants to listen to that creepy dude.
Yeah, he's hit that with that. There you go. There's proof.
Yeah, if you ever want proof of aliens, just look up Tiny Tim. What was it? Tiptoe Through the Tulips?
That's his big hit.
When I was a kid, my dad had a cassette tape that was silly songs, and that song was on it.
That dude's scary. I don't know why anybody was ever a fan of him.
All right, next week, I'm talking about Tiny Tim.
Are we going to do a whole Tiny Tim tribute show? Because I don't think anybody will listen to that.
No. I probably wouldn't play any of his music. I was just talking about how weird the dude was.
Oh, yeah.
I know quite a bit about him.
How do you know so much about Tiny Tim?
I don't know. I'm a weird dude.
Same reason I know so much about Harry Potter, probably.
Are you like a secret Tiny Tim fanatic, Keaton?
Dude, I like him, man. He's like, ain't nobody ever been like that dude. in the history of music.
Hopefully nobody will ever be like that again.
I don't think they can be.
I hope there are.
He seems like a cute guy, but he gives me the creeps, man. I mean, cute like in, oh, look how adorable that little strange man with the high-pitched voice is.
Right.
All right. For real, I'm going to play us off this evening. You know what? You can't ever go wrong with Led Zeppelin. And I'm going to play us off this evening with a little song called When the Levee Breaks. Sound good to y'all?
Good song.
Aye.
All right. Yes, my dear.
I just said aye to your.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying I need to say something else.
No, as in aye, Captain.
Oh, okay. All right. I hope everybody has enjoyed the show tonight. I've really enjoyed talking to y'all, and hopefully we'll do it again next Wednesday. Until then, y'all love each other, lift each other up, and take it easy. We'll see you next week here on The Basement on 88.7 WMMT. Good night, everybody.
You've been listening to the Basement Podcast. Be sure to check out wmmtbasement.tumblr.com for more episodes and like us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/WMMTbasement. You can learn more about WMMT by visiting www.wmmt.org.